So first and foremost, it really depends on what you have done to the vehicle, etc. Cam vehicles go a little different, bolt-on vehicles go a little different. So we will just take this approach as you've got a basic Lt1. You just want to turn off a couple of things. You want to adjust some idle, maybe some fan speed stuff, the speed limiter, things of that nature. Pretty simple to do. So we'll go down the list here, and we'll just start on the emissions stuff. So if you have EGR, exit at the chat, you know what I mean? What you'll want to do is kind of read these. If you hover over them, it tells you what it does. So if you go over here, I never mess with the first table right here. So we'll do the min and max RPM. So EGR cycles when that happen until the RPM value is exceeded. So that means we need to max this out if you want to completely turn it off. And I don't want to save anything. This is just a stock bin from a 94 Firehawk. The other one, you can just set it to 0. It will completely disable it. So air pump, you can max it out. I max it out too. And also there's actually an air pump enable. You want to turn that off too if you get rid of your emissions. And I'm not saying you should do that, but as if you do it for off-road purposes only. Wink, wink. Automatic transmission stuff. You have your torque converter lockup sequence stuff. So you have what gear it engages in at what mile per hour, and it's based upon TPS here. So second gear, it'll go 128 miles an hour. If you hit 128 miles an hour in second gear, it's going to lock up. Good luck with that. Third gear, minimum, it's going to lock up at 42 miles an hour. Probably your average is about 56 here. Actually, this is a M6 bin, so same thing though. It'll have the same tables in it, just down here, it'll be set right here. So, but we're just going to act like this is automatic, not a big deal. If you're getting a lot of converter shudder, you can just probably bump these up about 5 miles an hour, see if it goes away. But in that turn, this is the engage table. You need to go to the release table and do the exact same thing to kind of keep them even. So this is like 1 mile an hour off, as you can see. So we'll just bump this one up by 5 miles an hour as well. That's in normal mode. You have hot mode. I like to go through actually all of them. I personally do not know what the temperature threshold is for hot and normal. Couldn't tell you that, but just go down here, down this list. They're kind of hodgepodge together. It seems like they're not really in any kind of order, because you can see like manual release and then manual engage are in 2 different spots here, where normal is this right here. So manual is when you actually ship it yourself. You got wide open throttle. So wide open throttle lockup is 100 miles an hour, unlock it's 95. I like to bump those up a little bit. I don't want the converter locking unless you have like a triple disc or something, or you know what you're doing. Typically I never run them locked. But if you do, you kind of want to lock that last, I don't know, 300 foot of the quarter mile in third gear. So whatever you're at right there, give you a little bit more oomph. I wouldn't lock it down the whole strip though. That's kind of stressful on some stuff. But that's what all this stuff is right here. I never mess with any of this right here. It usually does pretty good. Continuing on, got kickdown mode. This is going to be your wide open throttle shift point stuff. Normal mode, shift up and down, that's mile per hour. The PCM looks for mile per hour first. Once this is met, it will next go to RPM. So if you have it banging off the limiter, you probably need to lower the mile an hour a little bit and then raise this a little bit. Sometimes you got to play with it just to to get it right. But a majority of the time, I will lower this a little bit with a stalled car. And if you have a stalled car anyway, you're probably wanting to go above 5,500 RPM anyway. And then same thing with this, just I make them all match all the way down the list here. So let's see, going down, line pressure control. I don't mess with this too much. I don't like burning up transmissions. I know some people get froggy with them. I leave the maximum line pressure at 90. If it's a little soft, I might bump it up just a tad, but I don't mess with this a lot. I'll just be honest with you. Temperature or the offset and stuff, I don't really mess with it too much. If you want to, you can force motor current. You can lower this down and make it shift a little firmer, probably like 10%. So to do that, let's go down here, divide, and then 1.1, that's 10%. Execute it, it'll come down about 10%, and then it'll firm it up just a tad. Nothing to really break anything, so I don't mess with it. I really, like I said, I don't mess with that too much. So shift timing, again, this is an M6, and we'll just open up we'll open up an automatic one just because. Here we go. Here you go, Jared. We'll open you up. And you can see this one, how much it's lowered to make it shift a little firmer. And then the shift time actually has a table in it. But I usually put these at like 0.2 or something, 0, just as quick as it can. It's not going to do anything that's physically impossible. So line pressure, you'll see, it's way different than the M6 one because the M6 one's a manual and it's not computer controlled. So this is a stock table right here. Again, I haven't touched this one. I think I did actually bump this up a little bit, just at higher RPM or higher map pressure. So yeah, again, I really don't mess with them too much. So I kind of does it for automatic stuff. If you're running the 60E, you know, yeah, make sure it's enabled. The 94 and 95 actually have different hardware in them. So if you're using a 94 transmission, use a 94 tune. If you're using a 95, use a 95 tune. Instrumentation calibration. This is for your speed sensor or your speedometer gear calibration. So it tells you right here what the PPM divided by 4,000 should be at. So we got a 26 right here. That's going to be for a 4L60E with I think a 323 gear on this one. I can't remember. You got the visor, it'll change that too. Scan tool will be changed as well. The stop pulse, 34, and then the speedometer calibration. So it's going to be 40 on this one and 17 on an F body or a B body with a T56, and then 2 for the Y body, which is a Corvette. But the main ones you're going to be changes is this one, and this one. Air fuel. Got your block learner modifier tables. So you got your trim maximum value and minimum value. So this is the maximum it will trim and the minimum it will trim. I don't really do these BLM numbers. I like to do percentage stuff. It just makes life a lot easier. But I use EEHACK to do that for me as far as the math. I just don't know. My brain's too full. I can't do this. You can actually do it by MAF and all that stuff. Here's another minimum and maximum table to keep it alive. So if it needs more or less fuel, it will go 128 or 160. You've got your RPM boundaries for your BLM, which is pretty much your long-term fuel trims. Your map boundaries, all that stuff. I usually do not mess with a lot of this stuff. It's usually spot on. And then special BLM, I never touch that. Closed loop configuration, this is all in degrees Celsius, so you can do normal or cold. You can raise or lower this to your heart's desire to where closed loop will enable. You have a closed loop delay timer after you start it. So if the temperature is low, medium, high, it takes this many seconds to enable closed loop. stoichiometric AFR target. If you run in the area with it runs where they run 10% ethanol in all of their fuel, you'll need to lower this. 14.1 to 14.2 across the board here is the general consensus of 10% ethanol. So I changed all of them to that. We'll get to this in a minute, but if you do this table right here, you're going to need to do the power and enrichment table as well, because they have a PE base, and I do 14.2, 14.1 on that one. Whatever I touch that day is going to be it. Let's see. All right, we'll go back to the closed loop stuff here. Timer temperature boundaries. There's your high and low temperature boundaries. Filter strength. If you move your O2s back, say you got long tube headers, you probably want to turn this up to about 17 or so, and just interpolate it down to about probably 5 right here. So 5 to 17. That works for me. Airflow. I usually have these set at 12. But I've never really seen a lot of change with the airflow correlation here. So, like I said, if you hover over these, it kind of tells you what it does. I have never seen a lot of big changes with just messing with this stuff. Now, I'm sure if I went crazy with the numbers, it would really mess with it, but I don't mess with it. I don't mess with this either. And I don't mess with this either. Just leave that stuff alone. The OBD1 PCM is too stupid to realize that you usually made a change. So, crank volumetric efficiency. If you're having trouble starting it after a cam swap or something, you may mess with this stuff. Usually you can get it with just mess with the MAF or the VE table. We'll get to that here in a second. AFR percentage correction. So this is like an initial startup enrichment. So it's going to do 0.40. Let me change it. I don't need to change it. Just go back to this. But just based upon coolant temp, I usually don't have to mess with this too much. So this is in degrees Celsius. So 92 is going to be around, what, 190 or something like that, I think. So it doesn't have to enrich anything. Added prime, all that stuff. I usually don't have to mess with any of this stuff right here. Power enrichment. Okay, so this is your wide open throttle fueling right here. I always apply this patch right here, so it locks it at 128 because it is kind of adjustable. It will use the last BLM before wide open throttle as your calculation. I don't want to do that. I want it to be the same every damn time. So lock it at 128. TPS enable. I usually don't have to mess with this too much. It's usually pretty damn good from the factory for a lot of people's applications. Boosted applications, I'll probably lower this probably about 10%. Here is your AFR correction based upon your coolant temp. I personally like to put these all at one. I don't want a correction, a PE AFR correction at coolant temp. I want it the same. Again with this too. I know people love to adjust their wide open throttle fueling here. I do not. I like to adjust it. And these tables are here. This one, I'll set at whatever AFR I wanted at. And it is just a multiplier based upon this number right here. If you don't get that, you shouldn't be tuning. Let's see. I never touched this. Cat enrich mode. If you don't have any cats, max this out. You didn't hear that from me. Don't mess with the rest of it. It's fine. It will not come on. Individual fuel trims. These are fun. So you can tell the difference between a 94 and a 95 setup. I believe this is a 95 one, I believe. So this one is you got 0 TPS. So this particular table is functions above 0% TPS. So it's going to be, it's just a multiplier. So based upon the Stoich table here, this one. And then same thing with this one right here. If you want to do individual fuel trims at 0% TPS, so idle. This one comes in handy when you have split BLMs at idle. You need to go in here and mess with a lot of this stuff. That can be real fun. Moving on, I don't mess with this at all. I just leave it. Transient fueling, I don't mess with this too much. They're usually pretty good from the factory. Think of this stuff as your accelerator pump on a carburetor, pretty much. And it should be enabled. If it's not enabled, you have a problem. Enable it. It should come from the factory. Cylinder volume. I only mess with this stuff when it has a stroker motor in it. If it's stock bottom in, it's going to be 71725. Injector flow rate. That's kind of self-explanatory right there. Looks like Jared was running some 38s there. Let's see. Let me go to another tune here. It shows a stock table. I don't know why his is in the stock table one. I guess I haven't messed with it in a couple of years. Let's see, here we go. 94 formula with an A4. That'll work. So your stock one's gonna be 2491, 25-pound injector. Cylinder volume 71725. MAF disable and MAF enabled. Okay, so this is a way to go into the speed density, and this is a way to make it ignore the VE table and run the MAF only. This is very important. If you're doing a speed density thing, instead of unplugging the MAF, all you have to do is go in here and check this right here, click save. It will run the VE table only. This is the bottom half of the VE table, so anything below 2000 RPM, right there. Come on, exit, there we go. And then anything above 2000 RPM, right here. This one's been modified a little bit. So you got your injector flow rate, you have your offset adder. So if you have injector data that you need to input, you're going to transfer it to this. Injector flow rate, let's see here. MAF calibration, I like to adjust. So when you go back over, you do your VE table. You want to disable your VE table. Click over here, it'll be MAF only, and then you're going to be adjusting your idle fueling kind of around here somewhere, just around this area. Be driving around in this area and this area, and the higher hertz you get, the more fueling there is. And then wide open throttle is going to be from here all the way down to this table around here. And if you're up here, you have a spicy ass engine. So I very rarely see this, but most of the wide open throttle stuff is right here. But if you know how to read your tables, then you know how to adjust your fueling. Let's see. Spark tables, knock management. These things love to retard a ton of timing from the factory. God, it is so dumb. 12 degrees, that is a lot. I've knocked this down to about 5. Man, if you're getting way more than 5 degrees of knock, it's already broke. Like, that's crazy. So if you have a knock sensor problem, this thing is going to retard up to, wide open throttle, 5200 RPM, 12 degrees of timing. It's going to be a turd. Knock it down. That's crazy. Burst knock, I usually turn it off or deaden it quite a bit. I don't really. I've always just turned it off usually. I know what I'm doing. So yeah, 5 degrees, just turn it off. It ain't gonna hurt anything. Low octane compensation, I never mess with it. Just leave it alone. Okay, regular spark stuff, I usually don't mess with any of this right here. Leave it alone. Spark maximum, leave it alone. And this is your meat and potatoes right here. You got your main spark table right here. Stock one, not too shabby. It can just be smoothed out, but you're not gonna notice a big difference. If you have stuff that looks like this right here, that's terrible. Don't do that. That's absolutely awful. So that was just for the purpose of showing you what not to do. Closed TPS spark advance. Oh, sorry, I skipped one. Extended spark advance is going to be wide open throttle at higher RPM. This one looks like it dips off quite a bit. This is a stock cable though. It's okay if you actually just want to do this right here. If you go over 7,000 RPM to smooth it out right there, but if you're hitting 7,000 RPM, you get a spicy ass Lt1. brings us on to closed spark TPS. I know the B body ones are a lot lower on the timing than the F body and Y body stuff. This is for an aluminum head. So 20 usually works pretty good unless you have a really, really, really big cam. I usually run a lot of them on at 20 to 25. But I'd say 95% of them, 20 degrees is going to be totally fine. Spark coolant correction. I like to do this one as a Corvette table. I like to match it as a Corvette table. So if you find a Corvette bin, you can just match it, just lower this a little bit, and it ain't gonna hurt anything. But it's usually pretty good. So if you can just look at just coolant temp versus mat pressure. So at 104 degrees Celsius, it's just pulling 3 degrees of timing above 70 MAP. So it's really a pretty good table already. I don't mess with it. EGR. Just zero it out if it's left to chat. Idle timing correction. So IAC stuff is slower to react than timing. Timing is faster to react for idle control. So you can bump this. I usually just match these two tables right here and call it good. I don't honestly go above 5 to 8 on the correction. The LT ones usually don't need it. LS1 stuff is a little different, so we'll get to that, whatever. Clutch enable TPS, disable TPS. It's going to disable at 99.6. Fan control. This is where you want to lower your fan temps right here. So this is in degrees Celsius. This is really hot. I usually go down to about 85 on the low speed and high speed. You can do whatever you want. I personally run 160 thermostats on all of my LT1 stuff and have these kick on at about 190 degrees Fahrenheit. So coolant temp hysteris, I never mess with this. Just leave it alone. Fan speed boundary, again, I never mess with this either. I never mess with any of the air conditioning stuff. The Corvette stuff is actually oil temp based as well. You can actually mess with this if you want. Again, I never mess with this either. 99.96% of mine are going to be here, right here. That's an easy one to do. And then that's it for fan control. Rev limiters, speed limiters, pretty easy. All the F-body ones are maxed out unless you have a 110 mile an hour speedometer, then it's going to have a speed limiter in it. Just max them out. Both of them, 255, 255. Good deal. Rev limiter, resume, and cutoff. You got your first gear and your others. Pretty self-explanatory. Safely, you could probably rev a stock one up to about 6, depending on the condition of your engine. Error checking, this is for codes. So if you want to, you know what I mean, delete these codes, can make them not pop up anymore. Stall wall, I get asked about that a couple times. You know, people still worry about stall wall. The fix for that, just uncheck this, and you're good to go. But that's my strong Speedworks fun fact for the day. VATS diagnostic, you have all your diagnostic stuff right here, so whatever you need to do, you can do it in here. I usually don't mess with a lot of this stuff unless you get a stall wall thing above like a 3200 RPM stall converter. It usually runs on a stall wall. Just delete that right there, you're good to go. Mainly my stuff's right here. So manual transmission for skip shift, disable it please. That sucks. Decel cutoff, never mess with that too much. Idle control, you got a big cam, you're going to be running 800 RPM and above, so just do whatever you need to do right here. And this is going to be your normal operating temp right here. Then your idle control position, manual and automatic ones are going to be different. So watch what you're doing right here. This is your initial position. So it's like when you go to start the vehicle, this is the position it's going to be in initially. So if you're having cold start or hot start issues or cold start issues, you can actually probably bump this up about 5 steps and probably help it. IAC speed adder, so coming to a stop sign, rolling or driving on the road, it's going to add another 12 to it. Then 8 miles an hour, it's going to jump to 8, and then 0 is going to be 5. So you can adjust your IAC that way too. Air conditioning pressure, again, another just multiplier on top of the actual steps of the vehicle. So Closed loop on idle, enable, I never mess with that either. I never mess with the keep step to live either. Traction control, you can turn it on or off right here. Just press the button whenever you want to do. Experimental, the only cable I use in here is unknown spark adder. I zero that out. I don't want any more spark added than what I put in there. That's, turn it off. That's just for the fueling inside the PCM. It does not control the actual VATs under the column. That controls the starter. So if you do a PCM swap, you just need to do this right here, delete that, and you can just run whatever PCM you want. But it does not inhibit the stuff under the column. That's a totally different thing. Miscellaneous, don't mess with it. Presets. This is actually a pretty cool thing with this particular XDF file. If I see a MAF table that's really janky, I will always apply this right here and just go back to a stock, whatever MAF calibration we have, and a stock O2 calibration. Really good tool to have. Unknown research. Don't know anything about that. README. Don't know anything about this stuff too. It looks like everything's set. Thanks to all these guys are here. EEHACK hatches. Again, if you don't know what it is, don't mess with it. It just tells you right here. I never mess with any of this other stuff either. So that's a quick rundown of TunerPro. Pretty much like a bolt-ons car. You're gonna have to mess with your main stuff's gonna be right here. So I never mess with any of the open loop target AFR. So primarily your fueling, if it's just blended, so MAF and MAP sensors enabled, like a factory setup, it primarily runs off the MAF and it uses the VE table as a backup. But it's good to dial in this because it's always looking at this too. So if you have both of these dialed in, you're gonna have a really good running car. But for a bolt-ons car, if you're just wanting to mess around a little bit, you can always just mess with the MAF here and adjust your fueling accordingly. And to do that, you're going to, no, I don't want to save that. You're going to be looking at one of these right here. This is a data log. Here, we'll just get I'll pull one up real quick. Boom. This is your typical data log. Well, I guess we'll just cover this too. We'll make this whole video. So this is a 32-minute data log by this customer here. I don't know anything about this car. I can't remember. I tune a lot of cars, so I have to look at it. But I get a lot of questions about, hey, my MAF is in red. Let's see if we can get this one to do it. Fast forward through it. I don't see it, but he's got a cam in it, I think. Oh yeah, he's got a cam in it. So I'll have customers ask me, why is this red right here on the MAF? Well, anything below, like, I don't know what the threshold is on EEHACK, but you'll see them like a stock vehicle at like in red, and it'll read like 8 grams a second. Don't worry about it. If it's reading 1 gram per second per liter size of your engine at idle, you're fine. So, and then map sensor wise, that's just map reading stuff. So at 0 TPS, his is pretty high. He's got, like I said, I think he's got a pretty big cam in this thing here. We'll just go back to idle. Yeah, it's not a big cam, it's a hefty cam, so you can kind of see what kind of size cam you got, just based off that. So, and you can see he's running 20 degrees timing right here. Intake temp, you got coolant temp, RPM, blah, blah, blah. So adjusting your MAF stuff, I usually click the analyze table, VE fueling, whatever minimum coolant tip you want it to be at, minimum timestamp, cell position, or population, I mean. I don't want to remove the idle stuff. I want it to display in percentage here. You're going to run the analysis, and you can see it populate here. So his looks pretty good. The only thing that's rich is 41 to 45, and that is going to be right here. This one. Nope, this one. 41, 45. So he's around this many hertz right here, so he's going to adjust it down. couple percent, get it more in line. So I usually leave them a little rich, so 2 to 4% rich is fine with me. Totally doable here. You got your power enrichment AFR. No, don't trust this. Don't, just leave it alone. Now, if you're recording your wideband right here, you're gonna be using that. Knock visualizers, your knock sensor stuff. Sometimes I see them in red. All are here. That means we got a bunch of knock, noisy valve trade, or we got false knock. So noisy valve trading or exhaust rubbing, things like that can cause false knock. Closed loop performance tells you what cells it was in the entire times and what RPM range, all that stuff, map range, your long-term BLMs, all that stuff. It tells you everything you need to know. But main tool is going to be this one right here. And then, let's see, you got your main stuff, you got your main tables right here. So if you need to look at your pulse widths, just have everything in like a list right here. Real good thing to have. Trans, I don't think I've ever seen anything populate right here. I don't mess with any of the rest of this stuff, just being honest. Yeah, I don't mess with anything like that. So debug, flash, it tells you there's a different tools for it now, but you don't need that anymore. You can run tests right here. So if you needed to run a stability test for your per cylinders, this is a good to have. Higher numbers equals stronger cylinder, but in my experience, the numbers don't really matter as long as they're even. Okay, that's what you want. Control, you can control stuff here. You can test things out. You can test your fans out, your AC compressor, your air pump, your purge. You can cut cylinders. That's a good one. You can reset your block alarm modifier. That's a good one too. You can turn your O2 sensors on and off right here. Override the AFR if you're having trouble getting into idle or anything. I think expert mode will make it go further. So you can go really lean or really rich. So you can try to, if you're just having trouble getting to the idle with your current stuff, expert mode also, you can get rid of this limiter on the spark, so you can add or subtract timing accordingly. That's just live stuff. Test your check engine light. All kinds of stuff you can do. So if you want to make your transfer firmer, softer, right here live, you can do it. So you can tell me what it likes or what you like, and I can adjust from there. Converter stuff, pick a gear, blah, blah, blah. Pretty self-explanatory stuff. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. Do all that YouTuber stuff. Like and subscribe. Catch you guys on the next one.